Think Hollywood did not exaggerate the Dilophosaurus to make it scary. They shrunk it. They stripped away 400 kilograms of muscle, bone, and terror because the truth was too intimidating for the screen. You remember this creature. The small one. The cute one with the rattling neck frill and the toxic spit that blinded Dennis Nedry before it tore him apart. You have carried that image in your mind for 30 years. That image is a lie. The real Dilophosaurus stood 7 meters long. The weight of a full-grown brown bear. The length of a modern school bus. There was no frill. There was no venom. Hollywood did not add features to make a monster. They subtracted them to make something audiences could process. 183 million years ago, in the scorched aftermath of the worst extinction event the planet had ever endured, this animal ruled an entire continent. Not as a scavenger. Not as an opportunist. As the undisputed apex predator of a recovering world. But here is what does not make sense. Look at its skull. Those twin crests rising from its snout like parallel blades, fragile. Hollow. Made of bone so thin it could not withstand combat. And that notch in its jaw, the gap between the front teeth and the rest, a structural weakness that should have disqualified it from apex status. This creature has no business being a king. And yet, for millions of years, nothing in North America could challenge it. How? Those crests look like decoration. A biological error that should have been selected out. Evolution does not tolerate weakness. It does not preserve ornaments that serve no function. Remember them. We will return to why they survived. But to understand how this creature ruled a continent, you need to see what is inside. And what is inside is not just muscle and bone. It is something far more disturbing. Consider the claws. 3 on each forelimb. These were not slashing weapons, they were hydraulic grappling hooks. Carbon fiber-dense talons designed not to kill, but to anchor. To lock struggling prey against a 400-kilogram frame while the real weapon did its work. The teeth. 30 of them. Each one serrated like a steak knife. 70 serrations per tooth, surgical saws designed not for crushing, but for opening. This was not a biting jaw. This was a bleeding jaw. Built to create wounds that would never close. The prey did not die from the impact. The prey died from fluid loss while the Dilophosaurus waited. But here is what is strange. This animal did not need a strong jaw. It did not need crushing power. Because the teeth were doing something else entirely. They were creating time. Time for the claws to hold. Time for the lungs to keep pumping. Time for the chase to continue until the target collapsed. And Dilophosaurus could chase. Its eyes sat forward in the skull. Binocular overlap, a targeting system calibrated for precision tracking in conditions where human vision would fail. Heat shimmer. Dust storms. The blinding glare of a Pangean noon. You see the world in color and form. Dilophosaurus saw it in movement signatures. Thermal gradients. Vibration patterns. A world you are biologically locked out of. A 400-kilogram predator should not be able to sneak up on anything. But the landscape provided cover. The constant hiss of wind across migrating dunes. The rumble of distant sand collapse. Acoustic camouflage built into the terrain itself. The environment was not just a setting. It was an ally. Now zoom out. Imagine the Earth from space 183 million years ago. One supercontinent. One ocean. And at the edge of a shrinking inland sea, one silhouette moving at speed toward something that cannot escape. But speed and senses are nothing without endurance. And what powered this animal, what allowed it to chase prey until they collapsed from exhaustion, that is where the engineering becomes alien. If we could see inside this creature, past the muscle, past the ribs, past the architecture of bone, we would find something that does not belong in the Mesozoic. A respiratory system that modern birds inherited, but that Dilophosaurus perfected 183 million years earlier. Air sacs. Woven through the vertebrae. extending into the hollow spaces of the skeleton itself. This was not a lung, this was an intercooler system. Pneumatic cavities that allowed oxygen to flow in one direction, without pause, without interruption. A turbocharged biological engine that never stalled. You breathe in. You breathe out. Your blood oxygenates in cycles. This animal breathed in a continuous stream. Constant fuel. Constant burn. A metabolism running at temperatures that would kill most modern predators. And the notched jaw? The weakness? The subnarial gap was not a flaw. It was a pressure release valve. A stress relief joint that allowed the jaw to clamp with devastating force without cracking the skull. Engineers call this controlled compliance. The ability to absorb shock by distributing stress. Dilophosaurus had it 183 million years before humans invented the concept. But here is the fact that refuses to leave my mind. The holotype, the most complete Dilophosaurus skeleton ever found, carries the scars of 8 major bone injuries. Tumors. Fractures. Deformities that would hospitalize a human for months. This animal lived in constant, grinding pain. And yet it remained the apex predator of its continent. Let that settle. An engine this powerful does not appear by accident. Something built this creature. Something forged it. And that something was an environment that makes our worst nightmares look like paradise. 183 million years ago, the world was broken. The Triassic extinction had erased 76% of all species. What remained was not a lush jungle. It was a scorched Pangaean frontier. Migrating dunes. Extreme dry seasons lasting months. Air so hot it pressed down on living tissue like a physical weight. Temperatures that would hospitalize a modern athlete in minutes. And in the center of this wasteland, one inland sea. Lake Dixie. The only source of water for hundreds of miles. Every herbivore, every carnivore, every organism large enough to matter, converging on the same shrinking shoreline. And waiting at the water's edge, the largest land predator the continent had ever seen. Dilophosaurus did not outcompete other predators. There were no other predators large enough to compete. The Triassic extinction had cleared the board. This creature did not climb to the top. It inherited a throne no one else survived to claim. Its only known relative, Dracovenator, lived half a world away. Dilophosaurus was alone. A declaration that this animal had survived everything its world could throw at it: tumors, fractures, heat, drought, starvation, and was still standing. Still hunting. Still ruling. The crests are not errors. They are the opposite. They are the crown of a broken king. A symbol of a species that chose to dominate a dying world through sheer metabolic will. Every fracture in its bones. Every tumor in its tissue. Every scar from a hunt gone wrong. The Crests said, I survived all of it. And I am still here. If a king can rule an entire continent while his own body is a map of fractures and disease, what is our excuse for being stopped by so much less? Nothing about Dilophosaurus was normal. But maybe normal was never the point.